I met Lynn on a Wednesday afternoon that smelled like motor oil and rain. She walked into the garage looking lost, clutching a worn-out paperback and asking if there was a coffee shop nearby. I pointed her toward the gas station 2 blocks down, but she wrinkled her nose and laughed. I meant actual coffee, not whatever's been sitting on a burner since Nixon. That made me laugh too. And that's how it started. My name is Jerry. I'm 23 years old and I run a small auto repair garage in a suburb outside Louisville, Kentucky. It's not much, but it's mine. Bought it cheap from a guy who was tired of the hustle. I live in a studio apartment above the shop, fix cars 6 days a week, and try to stay out of trouble. Lynn came back a few days later. This time she brought coffee for both of us. Peace offering, she said. For being snotty. I didn't mind. I liked her spark. She told me she was in law school at the University of Louisville and working part-time at a used bookstore to help cover tuition. She had this laser focus about her, like she saw the whole staircase even if she was still on the first step. I respected that. We started spending time together. At first, it was just small things, grabbing lunch, driving her to campus when it rained. Then it was dinners, all-night study sessions in my garage's break room, sharing stories about our screwed-up families and even more screwed-up childhoods. We clicked. I admired how serious she was, how she talked about wanting to fight for people who couldn't fight for themselves. She said I was the most grounded person she knew. It didn't take long before I was picking up the tab for more than just food. First it was notebooks and textbooks. Then groceries. Her rent when she fell behind. I started covering gaps in her tuition when her student loans came up short. She always apologized. Always said it was temporary. But I told myself it didn't matter. I believed in us. She'd sit across from me with those tired eyes and say, "Jerry, I don't know how I do any of this without you." And I'd smile like an idiot and say something like, "We're a team." And I meant that. I didn't see it as charity. I saw it as investing in our future, hers, mine, both of ours. One day she'd be a prosecutor and I'd have my garage running so smooth I wouldn't need to turn a wrench unless I wanted to. We'd have a house. Maybe kids. I had it all mapped out in my head like one of those glossy blueprints with every detail etched in ink. The more I gave, the more I believed. In her. In us. In the whole damn thing. Looking back now, maybe I should have seen the signs. But back then, it just felt like love. Like something solid. Like something worth building. We got married on a Tuesday. Just me, Lynn, and a county clerk who looked half asleep. No white dress, no tux, no cake. Just paperwork, handshakes, and the quiet sound of our signatures scratching down a future. "This is just a formality," Lynn said, slipping the thin silver band onto my finger. "One day we'll do it right. With music and family and a real party." I smiled and nodded, pretending I didn't care. But truth is, I wanted that day more than she did. I had dreams about it, her walking down some little grassy aisle behind a church, smiling like she used to in the bookstore. But that wasn't in the cards yet. Not with how busy her life was. Law school swallowed her whole. The long nights got longer. Internships, mock trials, endless assignments. Her eyes stayed red from reading too much. She was always somewhere between stressed and exhausted. And me? I stayed moving. If she needed something, I handled it. Licensing exams? I paid the registration fees. Bar prep courses? I scraped together enough to cover them. When she couldn't get to the courthouse for an unpaid internship downtown, I lent her my truck, even if that meant I took the bus or hitched rides from a guy named Travis who smelled like boiled onions. When she forgot to eat, I showed up with takeout. When the apartment got cold in winter and she was too busy to call the landlord, I fixed the damn heater myself. I told myself it was love. The shop started struggling around that time. Not because I wasn't getting customers, I was. But I kept saying yes to risky jobs, underbidding myself, working weekends just to cover our growing bills. I was burning the candle at both ends and trying to smile through the smoke. We barely talked unless it was about bills or classes. She stopped coming by the shop. Stopped asking about my day. Our texts got short. Our dinners got quiet. I started eating alone a lot, waiting up for her even when I knew she wasn't coming home till late. Sometimes she didn't come home at all, said she fell asleep at the library or stayed over with a study group. I didn't question it. I didn't want to be that guy, the one who doubted. I figured it was just a phase. Stress, exhaustion, whatever. I kept telling myself this was the middle of the story, not the end. We were laying bricks, even if they didn't look pretty right now. I still had the blueprint in my head. I still saw the life we talked about, her in a courtroom, me building the best damn garage in Jefferson County. I kept working, kept giving, kept believing. Because that's what love is, right? You sacrifice. You stretch. You wait. And I waited. Longer than I probably should have. The day Lynn passed the bar felt like a finish line. She called me just after the results were posted, her voice tight and shaking. I passed, she whispered like she couldn't believe it. I laughed and nearly dropped the wrench I was holding. I knew you would, I said. You're the smartest damn person I know. That night, her family threw a little party, just pizza and wine at her sister's house, nothing fancy. I brought flowers. She brought her new confidence. Everyone clapped when she walked in, and Lynn beamed like the whole world had finally opened up for her. Next stop, her dad said, raising his glass, Commonwealth's attorney's office. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Something like that. I stood there, a beer in one hand and my other in my pocket, watching her move around the room. She looked taller. Like someone important. I figured this was it. The hard part was behind us. Now we'd start living the life we talked about. The next few weeks felt different, though. She got sworn in. She got the job. She got a new work phone and started dressing sharper. She smiled for pictures with coworkers, all of them in dark suits with perfect teeth. I printed out one of the photos and stuck it on the fridge. You don't have to do that, she said when she saw it. It's not that big a deal. I smiled anyway. You're a prosecutor now. That's a big deal. She didn't respond. Just opened the fridge, grabbed a soda, and walked off. I told myself she was just tired. Adjusting. The hours were long and the cases heavy. I gave her space. I cooked dinner most nights and packed her lunch when I could. I kept the apartment clean. I asked how her day was, even when I knew she'd just nod and say, fine. She started coming home later. Sometimes not until after midnight. Sometimes not at all. When I asked if she wanted to go out, just the two of us, maybe dinner or a drive, she said she was too tired. Said she needed to focus. Said we'd do it another time. That time never came. Then one night, I got home from the shop and found her sitting on the couch. She wasn't crying. She wasn't even angry. She just looked done. She handed me an envelope. At first I thought maybe it was something from work. But then I saw the return address. It was from a divorce lawyer. What is this? I asked. She didn't look at me. Just stared at the wall. I've changed, she said quietly. We've changed. I opened the envelope. Read the words I didn't want to believe. You're serious, I said. After everything? I'm not that girl anymore, Jerry, she said, her voice flat. I don't want the same things. I sat down hard on the edge of the coffee table. What the hell happened to we're a team? She didn't answer. Just stood up, grabbed her keys, and walked out. And just like that, the blueprint I'd spent years building went up in smoke. I never wanted it to come to lawyers. I never imagined I'd be sitting across from one, going over years of receipts and bank statements, trying to put a dollar value on love. But there I was, in a cold, beige office that smelled like old carpet and stale coffee, watching a man in a cheap suit shake his head slowly. Jerry, I'm gonna be honest with you, he said. You gave her money. Rent, tuition, groceries, exam fees, it's generous, sure. But unless there was a written agreement that she'd pay it back, the court sees that as a marital contribution. But I paid for everything, I said. Her whole damn law degree. That was supposed to be our future. He gave me a look I've come to hate, half pity, half shrug. Courts don't deal in intent. They deal in paperwork. So we filed anyway. I figured maybe the judge would see what it cost me, at least acknowledge what I gave. My lawyer pulled together whatever records I still had, bank transfers, tuition payments, the lease agreement I signed to help her qualify for student housing. I even found old texts from Lynn thanking me, telling me she couldn't have made it without me. Didn't matter. In court, it was all so civil it made me sick. Her lawyer smiled the whole time like none of it meant a damn thing. Lynn barely looked at me. She wore a navy pantsuit and answered every question like a robot. No emotion. No guilt. They painted me as supportive and her as ambitious and driven. The judge nodded along like it was all perfectly normal. In the end, I was awarded a small reimbursement, less than 10% of what I'd given her over 4 years. Marital contribution, they called it again. Like it was a donation to a good cause. When the ruling came down, I sat there for a minute after everyone stood up. Just sat and stared at the wood grain of the table. I thought about all the nights I stayed up helping her study, the time I lent her my last $100, the day I watched her walk across that bar exam stage like she was floating. None of it counted. Outside, the wind hit me hard as I stepped onto the sidewalk. My lawyer said something about an appeal, but I barely heard him. I just nodded, shook his hand, and walked off. That night, I sat in the garage alone. No music. No beer. Just me in the silence. I looked around at the place I'd nearly lost trying to hold it all together. My tools. My lifts. The damn oil stain on the floor that never went away. Maybe love doesn't leave a paper trail. Maybe it only exists until one person decides it doesn't anymore. Either way, I was done chasing what couldn't be proven. She had her degree. I had my debt. Now all I could do was start over. It took about 6 months before I stopped waking up bitter. Not fixed, just less hollow. Grief wasn't loud anymore. It was quiet, background noise I got used to, like the hum of the fridge or the buzz of the shop lights. I threw myself into work. Not just fixing cars, but rebuilding the whole business. Rebranded the garage as Restoration and Revival. Put up new signage. Started specializing in vintage rebuilds, classic trucks, 60s Mustangs, the kind of jobs that took time and patience. The kind of jobs that reminded me that some things can be broken and still be worth saving. And people came. Turns out word spreads fast when you're the guy who'll spend 4 hours making sure a chrome bumper lines up just right. I doubled my clientele in less than a year. Hired 2 part-time mechanics, opened up a waiting room with real coffee and decent chairs. For once, I wasn't just surviving. I was proud. I didn't date much at first. Women would come in and flirt while waiting on an oil change, but I wasn't interested. I was tired of people who liked the idea of me but not the whole deal. The grease under my nails. The long hours. The way I didn't own a single suit. Then came Kara. She brought in a 78 VW bus, soft green with rust around the windows and interior like a haunted couch. "I'm an interior designer," she said. "This thing's going to be my mobile studio. You think it's savable?" I ran my hand along the dented side panel and smiled. "If you've got the time, I've got the patience." She grinned back. "Then I think we're gonna get along." Turns out we did. She came by every week to check progress, always with iced coffee in hand and stories about difficult clients and dream projects. She didn't flinch when I handed her a bill. She didn't ask for favors. She respected the work. When I asked her out, she didn't make it complicated. Just said, "Yeah, I'd like that," like it was the most obvious thing in the world. We didn't talk about marriage. Not once. Early on, I told her what happened with Lynn. I told her I'd never sign another legal document with anyone I loved again. She didn't blink. "Paper doesn't make a relationship," she said. "People do." That was over 2 years ago. Now we live in a little ranch house on the edge of town. Her VW bus sits in our driveway, fully restored, covered in sun-faded stickers and creative chaos. I keep my shop, she keeps her studio. We split the bills, keep our names separate, and share everything else. Most days, we meet in the kitchen after work, cook something easy, and talk about nothing. It's not flashy. It's not dramatic. It's real. And for the first time in a long time, I finally feel whole again. It came on a Monday. Just after lunch, while I was wiping down my hands from a radiator flush, I saw the notification on my phone. LinkedIn, Lynn Abrams has sent you a message. I just stood there, hand frozen mid-reach for a towel. I hadn't seen her name pop up in years. She'd gone completely quiet after the court stuff. I figured that was the last chapter. Apparently not. I opened it. "Hey Jerry." Random, I know. But I came across this legal article on prosecutorial discretion and it made me think of some of our late-night talks back in the day. "Hope you're doing well." I stared at it for a while, rereading the last line. "Hope you're doing well." Not a question. Not even an opening. Just a vague fishing line tossed in my direction. I didn't respond right away. I slid the phone into my pocket and went back to work. Spent the rest of the afternoon replacing brake pads and pretending it didn't get to me. That night, I mentioned it to Kara. She raised an eyebrow. Lynn? Yeah. What did she want? Not sure yet. She didn't press me. Just nodded once and went back to sketching out shelving layouts on her iPad. The next morning, there was another message. Just wanted to say, I still admire what you did for me. Back then. You were the reason I made it through that part of my life. You were always the solid one. That word, solid, landed strange. It was the kind of compliment people give when they're standing on a sinking ship, looking for something steady to grab onto. Like maybe now I was the clean, dependable option. I answered hours later. Kept it short. Glad you're doing well. Things worked out on my end too. She replied the next day. The messages kept coming once every few days. Nothing flirty, nothing direct. Just casual nostalgia. Comments about cases she was working, books she was reading, old songs that reminded her of the garage. Over a few weeks, her tone started to shift. A little warmer. A little slower between messages. Like she was waiting to see how I'd respond. Then one night she wrote, I don't know why I pushed you away. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. Sometimes I think about what we could have had if I hadn't been so focused on climbing. I stared at it for a long time. It didn't feel like an apology. Felt like regret wrapped in charm. A way to poke the past without really owning it. I showed it to Kara. She read it, handed my phone back, and said, "Guess some people finally figure out what they lost. Just takes them longer." I didn't answer Lynn that night. The truth was I wasn't angry anymore. I didn't want revenge. But I also didn't want to give her the satisfaction of thinking I was still that man, waiting on the other end of a message with hope in his chest. That man was gone. And in his place was someone who had already built the life she walked away from. I didn't plan it. I wasn't looking for revenge. But when Lynn started circling back like nothing happened, something in me shifted. I didn't ignore her. I answered just enough to keep the string taut. Polite replies, short delays, casual tone. Not cold. Not warm. Just quiet indifference. She'd send a message on a Tuesday. I'd respond Friday night. She'd mention how life feels complicated lately. And I'd hit her with a thumbs-up emoji or a simple, hope things smooth out. She tried harder after that. It's weird. I used to think about my future and you were always in it. I just didn't know how to make everything fit back then. I didn't ask what that meant. You were always the safe place, Jerry. Even now, I still think about that. I wrote back, glad to hear you're doing all right. Things are busy on my end. Shop's booming. And they were. The business was in its best season yet. I had a waiting list for custom builds. Kara and I had taken a trip out west in her van the month before, spent a week off-grid and came back more grounded than ever. I never mentioned her to Lynn. Let her think whatever she wanted. Some nights, I'd be sitting on the porch with Kara sipping cold beer, and my phone would buzz with a new message from Lynn. She started opening up more. My second marriage didn't work out. He was the kind of guy who liked the perks but not the work. I thought I had it all figured out. Turns out I just knew how to chase titles, not people. I'd glance at the message, lock my phone, and go back to whatever we were doing. Talking about tile samples, painting the shed, watching the neighbor's cat try to fight its reflection in our window. Lynn didn't stop, though. She kept messaging like each note was a little test balloon. When I didn't bite, she floated another. You're probably the most dependable man I've ever known. I don't think I appreciated that back then. One day, she sent a photo of her old bookshelf, still filled with law school materials I'd helped pay for. Every time I look at this, I think about you. I answered 4 days later. Hope the job's treating you well. She said she missed how simple things used to feel. Missed the comfort. That was when I knew. She didn't want me back. She wanted what I used to be. Steady, generous, quietly loyal. She didn't love me. She missed the feeling of being taken care of. And I wasn't that man anymore. But I wasn't going to slam the door. Not yet. No, I let her hang there. Just like I'd hung all those years ago. I let her wait for the reply that never quite came. Let her fill the silence with hope, wondering if maybe I'd softened. All the while, I built furniture with Kara. Tuned engines with my guys. Slept like a man with no ghosts. Lynn thought we were reconnecting. I was just letting her feel the quiet that once swallowed me whole. I sent the final message on a Sunday morning, just after finishing a carburetor rebuild. The garage was quiet, sunlight pouring in through the front windows. I wiped my hands on a rag, sat down on the stool near the workbench, and opened the app. Lynn had messaged the night before. I know I'm probably reading too much into things, but I keep wondering if there's still a part of you that cares. Maybe we could get coffee sometime? No pressure. Just two people who meant something to each other. I stared at it for a while. Let the silence stretch one last time. Then I typed, "Lynn, I'm going to be real with you, and this will be the last time I say anything about it. What we had, that was real to me. I gave everything because I believed we were building something. And when you walked away, you didn't just leave me. You left me empty. You took what we had and you used it to launch yourself into the next chapter of your life like I was just the launch pad. But it turns out losing you wasn't the end. It was the beginning. A painful one, yeah, but a clean one. I built something better out of that wreckage. I found peace. Real peace. And I don't owe that version of myself to anyone but me. So no, I'm not meeting for coffee. Not catching up. Not reopening doors that were closed for a reason. That divorce wasn't a loss. It was a gift. One I didn't ask for, but damn if it didn't set me free. I hit send. She read it within minutes. The three dots blinked for a long time. When her reply finally came through, it was sharp. Wow. You really are cold now. I always knew you had that in you. You've changed. Another message followed seconds later. You're cruel, Jerry. I reached out because I was being honest. I was trying. You didn't have to humiliate me. Then silence. Until the next day. That's when it got worse. She started messaging mutual friends, people I hadn't talked to in years. Even sent a message to the garage's business page claiming I was emotionally manipulative. One of my newer employees showed me. Then she messaged Kara. That was the line. I called my lawyer, the same guy who helped me back when she served the divorce papers. I need a cease and desist sent. Harassment, unwanted contact, third-party targeting. He got it out by end of day. We followed up with a formal block on every channel, email, social media, business lines, even the review platforms. She sent one final message before the hammer dropped. You're a coward hiding behind legal threats. You can't erase people just because they hurt you. But she was wrong. I didn't erase her. I just stopped giving her the power to write anything new. And I meant every word of that message. Losing her was the beginning of everything I didn't know I needed. Some chapters don't end. You have to shut them yourself. Lock the cover. Walk away. A couple months after the last message, the silence settled in like an old friend. No calls. No emails. No sudden texts pretending nothing had happened. Just quiet. One Saturday afternoon, Kara and I were in her studio rearranging some shelving she'd built out of reclaimed pine. She was fussing over whether the color palette matched her new upholstery samples, and I was pretending I had an opinion when really I just liked watching her work. You ever think about the past? She asked casually, not looking up from the swatches. Sometimes, I said. But not in a bad way. She glanced at me. You sure? I nodded. Yeah. I don't carry it anymore. Not like I used to. She smiled, just a little. That's a rare thing. Later that evening, I was locking up the garage when I noticed my phone had some unread messages, nothing urgent, just notifications I'd ignored earlier. I saw Lynn's name still sitting in the archive of my messaging app. For a second, I hovered over it. Then, without hesitation, I tapped, held, and hit delete conversation. No more threads. No more digital ghosts. Just gone. That night, I grilled steaks in the backyard while Kara played old blues records through a crackly speaker we kept on the porch. After dinner, we sat on the steps with cold drinks, her legs crossed under her, mine stretched out, boots kicked off. Do you ever regret not? I don't know, going back and saying more, she asked. I shook my head. Everything I didn't say spoke loud enough. She leaned her head on my shoulder, and we sat like that for a long time, no fireworks, no grand monologue, just shared quiet. As the sun dipped below the fence line and the crickets picked up, I realized something simple and whole. I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Lynn's return hadn't shaken me. It had confirmed something I'd suspected all along, that I'd already risen, and I'd never go back.